Okay, this pardon me, this video is going to be covering chapter 18 of improving vocabulary skills. I encourage you to go ahead and get your book and follow along because you can fill in some of the answers as we go along. I actually have my book here with me today, so we're on actually page 106 for chapter 18. So let's take a look at some of the words and read through them to try to guess their parts of speech. Constrict. Exhaustive, the if is a clue. Fallible, able is a clue. Formulate, eight is a clue. Genial, habitat. Pragmatic, pretentious, that's a clue too at the end. Reconcile, and vile. So the first word is constrict, and this one is a verb. The summer highway construction will constrict traffic by confining it to only 2 lanes. For years in China, for centuries in China, girls' feet were constricted with binding to keep them from growing to normal size. Women's feet were considered most attractive if they were less than 4 inches long. What constrict means is to squeeze, and I'm not sure that that's showing up here on this video, but it should be letter C, to squeeze. Um, Constrict, one of the ways to remember the word constrict is if you think of the animal, the boa constrictor. The boa constrictor is the long snake, similar to like an anaconda that's found in the jungles of Southeast Asia. I don't know if boa constrictors are in the Amazon, but anyway, they're big. They're big snakes, and the way that they kill their prey is by wrapping their bodies around them and squeezing them until they die. So when we talk about constrict, it means we're limiting something by pushing it together. So in the first example, it talks about the traffic being constricted, and what it means by that is that the traffic is squeezed together. So normally it's 4 lanes, but it's squeezed together into 2 lanes. And normally when we talk about constricting, we're squeezing things in, and normally it's causing a problem. Another way that constrict is used, that may help you understand it is like sometimes if our pants are too tight, they can constrict. We can say that they're constricting. Or if we're, pardon me, if we're wearing clothes that are too tight or uncomfortable, they constrict our movements, meaning that they're pushing our body in, and because of that, we're not able to do all of the things that we want to do. Our next one is exhaustive, and this one ends in IVE, which is often an adjective, but not always. Don't use and in this case it is an adjective. Don't buy a used car without putting it through an exhaustive inspection. Check every detail from hood to trunk. My teacher recommended an exhaustive 1,000-page biography of Freud, but who has the time to read such a thorough account? What exhaustive means is detailed. Now, if we look at the word exhaustive, it comes from the word exhaust. Now, some of you guys may know exhaust like the exhaust pipe on a car, which is the where the pipe at the back of the car where those fumes come out. That's called exhaust too, but that's not what we're talking about. In this case, we mean the meaning of exhaust, meaning to tire out. You may have heard the word exhausted. I'm exhausted. A lot of you may feel exhausted at this point in the semester. I know I do. Um, but when we describe something as exhaustive, what we mean is that it's so complete that obviously it was very tiring to put together. So in the first example, it's saying, have an exhaustive inspection, meaning having it so complete, and so much effort put into it that no detail is left out. Um, a book on Freud, who's a famous psychiatrist or psychologist, that's 1,000 pages long. If you think about writing that, that's a lot of work. But it's exhaustive because it's covering all the different parts of it. Exhaustive on page 107 is number 6, covering all possible details, complete or thorough. Our next word here is fallible, and this is an adjective ending in IBLE. I know we're all fallible, the boss told his workers, but do you have to make so many of your mistakes on company time? Um, when they are little, kids think their parents can do no wrong, but when they become teenagers, their parents suddenly seem fallible. So means is imperfect. Now, I'm not sure exactly of the root of this word, um, but the way that I always think of it is not the pronunciation is fallible, not fallible, um, and 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 really, if you think about it, fallible, what it means is able to fail, or able to make mistakes. Able means, that you can do something. So someone is fallible means that they're capable of making mistakes, which is true, which is true of all of us, are capable of making mistakes. Um, but in the first example, it's saying, I know we're all fallible. We know we all make mistakes. But the boss goes on and gives the example or gives the joke of don't make all your mistakes while you're on company time. On page 107, fallible's number 4, capable of making an error. Our next word is formulate, and this ends in that 8 sound, making it a verb. The author first formulated an outline of his plot and then began writing his mystery. Before stepping into his boss's office, Toshio had carefully formulated his case for a raise. Formulate means to develop. So if we look at formulate, formulate's a verb, but at the base of this verb is the word form. To form something means to make something. So formulate has that same meaning. To formulate means to come up with some sort of plan. Um, formulate is normally used for coming up with a plan or an idea of how to do something rather than um, making something. Like, for example, you would say, I made a picture, right? Or, meaning I drew a picture, but you wouldn't say I formulated a picture because formulate has more of a focus on planning. Similarly, you could say, I made or I developed a new car, but we wouldn't really say you formulated a new car because formulate is focusing on more on the method or on the plan for doing something. On page 107, it's number 9, to plan or express in an orderly way. So again, formulate does mean to develop, but it really means to develop some sort of plan or some sort of way of doing something. Our next example is genial, and this is an adjective. I was worried that my grandmother's treatment at the nursing home might be harsh, so I was relieved when the nurses and aides turned out to be very genial. Stacy found her first dance instructor so rude and unpleasant that she changed to a more genial one. What it means is good-natured or friendly. Um, we talked about the word, I believe we talked about the word amiable. Um, uh, and we had another word like this that I'm blanking on right now. But when we're talking about genial, we mean just that someone by their nature is just a friendly person. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're outgoing, or that they're looking to make friends, but it just means that their outlook on life is sort of a happy outlook on life. So someone who's genial is friendly, pleasant, and kind. I have not been this semester the most genial of professors, and I do apologize for that. And anyway, I'll apologize in class as well. But One of the things that affects, whether or not you're genial or not, obviously, is your basic personality. Some people are just naturally, we say happy-go-lucky, or just naturally friendly. They always seem to be in a positive mood. But one of the things that can impact a person's mood is obviously the stress that someone's under, and that can change their genial nature into more of a harsh nature. Our next word here is habitat. Many people believe that wild animals should be allowed to remain in their natural habitats and not be captured and put in zoos. Moths can live in a large variety of humid habitats, from very cold to very hot. And habitat means territory. There was I think it's in 22, which I'm also teaching, but there's the word inhabit, which inhabit means to live in, and a habitat is related to that. Your habitat is the place where you live, but really the place where you're best suited to live. When we use the word habitat, we don't really use it in the way in which we would use the word a house. Because your house isn't really your habitat. And when we talk about humans, we don't really talk about our habitat. We talk about that more as with animals or living things. The habitat is the place where they naturally occur, and or live. And some of the things that make a habitat successful for one animal will make it unsuccessful for another one. So when we're talking about habitat, we're talking about weather, we're talking about vegetation, other plants, we're talking about the other animals that live in that area as well. All affect whether the habitat is suitable for that particular plant or animal. But don't really use it for humans. Use it for animals and plants. Our next word here is pragmatic, and this one is an adjective. We always called my sister Practical Polly because she was the most pragmatic member of the family. When Vince was single, he spent most of his money on travel. Now that he has a family to support, he must spend his money in more pragmatic ways. Pragmatic means sensible. So in the first sentence, it says it uses a synonym, practical, where it says practical poly. And that's really what pragmatic means. Pragmatic means that you're making a decision that makes the most sense, given the situation. Um, so uh, so in the in the second example, when you're single, you have more free time. But now that he was married, he spends it on more pragmatic ways, meaning on rather than spending money to go travel, which is not, sort of could be at times extravagant or extra. He's spending it on things that are more sensible, like food and rent and things. Pardon me, things for his children and whatnot. But on page 107, pragmatic is practical, right? So that you're doing the things that make sense. Okay, our next word here is pretentious, and this one is an adjective. Dana's classmates don't like her because she's so pretentious. It's hard to like someone who acts as if she knows it all. My aunt marked her husband's grave with a large, pretentious monument, as though he were a member of a royal family. What pretentious is important seeming. Now, be careful because that definition makes it sound like pretentious is a positive thing. If something is important seeming, uh, whatever, that's not a negative. But pretentious is really a negative word. Pretentious, when I think about it, and again, I'm not sure if this is the root of it, but I always think about it as having the root of pretend. So when someone is being pretentious, it means that they're pretending to be more important than they actually are. So for in the first example, The classmates don't like her because she's pretentious. She pretends that she's better than everybody else in the class. In the second one, this grave is the headstone is pretentious. The woman is pretending that her husband was, a bigger deal than he was. So pretentious again, yeah, it's important seeming. It's number 3 on page 107, making a show of excellence or importance, especially when undeserved or undeserved, right? So it's important seeming, but it's it just looks important or just acts important, but isn't really. Our next word here is reconcile, and this is a verb. When my grandfather died, we worked hard to reconcile Grandma to the fact that he was really gone. After his third week in 6 months, Ahmed reconciled himself to living somewhere along a bus line and doing without a car. So, reconcile means to bring to accept the truth. Okay, this is a little bit of a tricky word to use in a sentence because reconcile, well, first, okay, the meaning of reconcile means to make someone admit or to make someone admit to a truth that they're unhappy with or that they don't like. So right now, I mean, a lot of people are reconciling themselves with with the election of the new president. For some people, they don't have to reconcile themselves because they're happy about the new president. But for other people, they do have to reconcile themselves because they don't, we as humans, we don't want to accept things that are bad. We would, in general, choose to avoid them. Um, but the trick to using it is that the person who is accepting the truth is the person who comes after the verb, not the person who comes before. Okay, so in the first one, it's saying we worked hard to reconcile grandma. So the person who is having to come to accept the fact that her husband is really gone is not is not us, but it's actually the person after the verb grandma. In the second one, it's a little bit different, but if you look, it says Ahmed reconciled himself. So the person who's really coming to accept the truth is himself. Now, that happens to be Ahmed in that case. Both the subject and the object are the same, but really the focus is on the person who comes after the verb rather than the person who comes before it. So our next word here, pardon me, is vile, and this is an adjective. My sister loves a certain cheese that has a vile odor of something that fell off a garbage truck. When I finally get around to cleaning out the refrigerator, I always find some vile, moldy leftovers at the back of the shelf. And vile means nasty. Um, Vile can mean nasty in a couple of different ways. Another word that you may or may not know is repulsive, which I think of when I think of vile. Repulsive means like repulsive is like the word repel, which means to push away from something. Um, so repulsive means or vile means that something is nasty in a way that makes you want to go away to walk away from it. So in the first one, it's talking about the smell of the cheese is vile, meaning that you smell that and you want to turn away from that. In the second one, it's also talking about food, like food that's been left out for a long time. It gets mold on it, and it's vile, like it's disgusting, and you want to go away from it. Um, but vile can also be, if you describe a person as vile, it means that it's sort of similar to someone who's obnoxious, but it means that they have a kind of personality or behavior that's sort of disgusting and makes you want, and repels you and makes you want to go away from it. On page 107, it's number 8. Offensive to the senses, feelings, or thoughts. Disgusting. Okay, that's it. We're done. Go ahead and finish off the exercises in the book, and I'll see you in class. Take care. Bye.